And we're still in the book of Genesis, and actually we're in chapter 41, but we are in a new parsha, which is a new part of Genesis according to the Jews. When they read the Torah, this is the start of the parsha called MKHITS. And MKHITS means in the end. Now, this is not the end of the story. There are still two, maybe three chapters in Joseph's story here, but this is the end of Joseph's descent. So remember, Joseph goes through these cycles. He has this dream. He's favored with his dad. He gives him the shirt, the tunic. Then his brothers throw him in a pit. He's sold into slavery. Then he rises again and into the house of Potiphar. Then he has the episode we talked about with Potiphar's wife. Then he's thrown in the jail. He succeeds. He starts his ascent again. But then when the chief butler and the baker the chief butler gets released, or the cupbearer gets released, he forgets about Joseph. And so Joseph is still in the pit. Now, the end here that's spoken of, it's the end of Joseph's trials. That's the end. And that's what MKHITS is about. That's what these chapters 41 until I believe 43 or 44 are about. And also the end of his separation from his family. That's another end that we're going to see happening in this parsha. So chapter 41 starts with 2 years have passed. 2 years have passed since what? Since Joseph interpreted the dreams for the butler. And Pharaoh has a dream. Now notice, in the dream, he sees two dreams. He sees the first dream, he sees 7 fat, good-looking cows being devoured by 7 ugly, thin cows. And then he sees 7 ears of wheat that are fat, that are rich, that are good, eaten by 7 thin ears of grain. And he sees these two dreams. Now, dreaming in ancient Egypt, and there is a whole bunch of literature about dreams in ancient Egypt. They had a whole apparatus that interpreted dreams for leaders and the Pharaoh. And they had some weird ceremony called dream incubation, where when the dream couldn't be interpreted, the Pharaoh or the person who had the dream is sort of forced into a sleep state, sort of like hypnosis. And there's a whole ritual adding snakes around him, not snakes that are harmful, and all kinds of things to induce him to be in that dream state and be interpreted. There was a whole technique for it. And so Pharaoh orders all of his wise men, and that was one of their tasks, is to interpret dreams. That was one of the tasks assigned to them. But nobody could interpret, and that's where the cupbearer remembers his, as he calls it, his mistakes. What mistakes are we talking about? The mistakes are that he forgot about Joseph. And he tells Pharaoh the story of Joseph and how Joseph interpreted the dreams for both him and the baker, and how the dream came true, how the interpretation was true. So in verse 14, Pharaoh calls Joseph in, but Joseph is a Hebrew and he can't enter. Remember, Hebrews were considered unclean to the Egyptians because they did not believe in the same things that the Egyptians believed in. So he goes through this very Egyptian ritual of he's shaven. Notice he's given new garments. So remember, his garments were taken away from him by Pharaoh's wife. He's thrown in jail. Now he's given these new garments, and he enters into Pharaoh's presence, and Pharaoh tells him the dream once again. So we have sevens, we have the dream being told 3 times so far. And Joseph interprets the dream, but Joseph doesn't stop at interpreting the dream. Joseph continues to give suggestions as to what Pharaoh needs to do, which is he needs to appoint a wise person who will be able to store food during the 7 good years and distribute it through the 7 bad years. And Pharaoh sees that Joseph is the man for the job, and he hires him. He says, "You are it." Now, notice again, this rhythm in the stories of Genesis. Things repeat. Remember Potiphar, and the name of this Pharaoh is also Potiphar, or a variant of it, according to the chapter. Now he is given control over everything the Pharaoh has. No mention of meat or food here. He's given absolute control. He's next to the Pharaoh in power, and he is to take care of business. Now, again, in this chapter, Joseph is given signet ring. He's given more clothes. He's given what's called a pectoral necklace. It's a symbol of authority and power. It's called pectoral because it goes around your pecs. It goes around on your chest. And it's made of gold. And then he's announced to everyone in the country. And basically, nobody can do anything without Joseph. Now, Joseph then is married to Asenath, the daughter of the chief priest, and her name, and he's given a new name. And we've talked earlier about giving new names as signs of covenants and stuff. I don't really know what it meant for the Egyptians. But here is a change of name that is associated with power. And the name, I've seen many interpretations of it, but in some translations, it is the salvation, means the salvation of the world, or the savior of the world. And the world, to the Egyptians, it's an ancient civilization. They had a lot of power. Their world was vast. They ruled big parts of Africa. Their influence extended to the Arabian Peninsula and the Levant. So and Canaan. So he's given power. So Joseph is designated the savior of the world in a way. Now, in this old translation from Hebrew into Arabic, it's a 1,000-year-old translation that I love reading from. The name is translated as revealer of things that are hidden. So Pharaoh is acknowledging Joseph's talent for interpreting dreams, even though Joseph told the Pharaoh that it's God who interprets. I'm just an instrument in God's hand. God is the one who gives me these interpretations. Joseph is 30 years old, and here is a thing that always interests me when I read the story. Joseph, remember how the patriarchs had a thing about their family, the family of Jacob, Abraham, and Isaac marrying into Canaanites or Hittites or marrying into foreign nations, let alone Joseph marrying the daughter of the chief priest who worships an idol, basically, or a bunch of idols, and he's marrying outside of Israel. And he has children with her. And he calls the first one Manasseh. His eldest son is Manasseh because at that point, Joseph has forgotten. Nasa in Arabic and in Hebrew, Nasha means to forget. Has forgotten all of his troubles, the troubles that he has been through so far. So another marker of the ends of the troubles of Joseph, including what he suffered at the house of his father. And he calls the second one Ephraim. Now, Parah or Farah in Arabic means to grow or multiply, because the Lord has grown him in the country of his weakness, in the land of his weakness. So it is an acknowledgement. He's this minority person from a people that the Egyptians consider unclean, but the Lord has blessed him and has given him power over all of those Egyptians. Now, there is a question that always arises: why would the pharaohs who considered the Hebrews unclean do this to someone who is a Hebrew and give him so much power? Well, one explanation is that Egypt at the time was ruled by the Hyksos, and the Hyksos came from Asia, so they were an Asiatic tribe, similar to the Habiros, similar to the Hebrews, and they had no problem putting another Hebrew in charge. So this is one interpretation. We don't know if it's true or not, but the feeling that he has grown in the country, in the land of his weakness, in a land where he is a minority, he doesn't have a lot of rights, the Lord has grown him. So that's where the name Ephraim comes from. And it makes me think of the fact that most members of the church nowadays belong to the tribe of Ephraim, and the responsibility of all the Ephraimites who are adopted or who are in it, to grow the church in countries where it is weak. It's sort of a birthright that we get from that moment in Joseph's life. Joseph, son of Yaakov, son of Jacob. Notice also the similarity between the Pharaoh's dream and Joseph's dream in the beginning of Joseph's saga. Joseph's dream was the first. He had two dreams as well. He had a dream that he saw sheaves that were bowing. There were 7 healthy sheaves that were bowing to a weaker sheaf. That's him. And then he saw the sun, the star, and the moons bowing to him. In both cases, it's like the good cows and the good ears of grain. The powerful, the good, the thing that's perceived good is yielding to the weak and to the oppressed, which is a sign of the justice of God, that God always favors the weak and the oppressed over the strong and the well endowed, the people who have the resources. So that is another similarity. 2 dreams for Pharaoh and Joseph, and then they are sort of the same dream. But the dreams of Joseph are yet to be fulfilled. We haven't spoken about that, but at the end of chapter 41, the dreams of the Pharaoh are being fulfilled. So this is sort of like a chiasm. We're going, from the dream of Joseph, then the dream of the Pharaoh. Now that we'll go back to the dreams of Joseph being fulfilled in chapter 42. It's a wonderful story. Joseph's troubles are not over yet, but again, if there is anything I get out of it so far, is the mercy of God. God always gets you out of trouble. We just need to trust in him. And that's all I have for this segment. You have a wonderful evening.